Hey guys, it's me, Seren, back with another video. This is going to be a review for episode 8 of Lovecraft Country. I know I said review and not recap. I don't know if I'm going to be able to recap this episode. This is another episode that I didn't like. This is my new least favorite episode. I wonder if next week will be my new least favorite episode, because ever since about episode 4, the Goonies episode, I feel like this show has jumped the shark. I feel like this show has taken a noticeable nosedive in quality. I feel like the main plot has been put on the back burner, and instead of moving forward our main plot with our main characters, I don't know what's going on. It's just like we're just seeing characters in random situations, and these random situations are meant to make a point, I'm trying to think of what's the best way to describe it. Like last week's episode, Hippolyta's episode, was supposed to be I guess Hippolyta's being empowered and figuring out what was wrong with her life. And I don't know, it just seems like our main plot has really been put in the back burner. And instead of us seeing things that are related to our main plot and that are moving our main plot along, we're just getting a bunch of side shit. And I'm extremely, extremely tired of it. I'm extremely tired of the plot seeming like it's happening to the characters. I don't know how the characters are going to act in any moment. There's no continuity for any of the characters or for any of their behavior. In this episode alone, Lettie acted so out of character, it made no sense. Diana disappeared. She showed up at Lettie's house trying to get help, and Lettie's just yeah, whatever, just go inside and play. Who acts like that? The little girl, you know what? Actually, let me try to recap. There was no good in this episode for me. I didn't enjoy it at all. But let me try to recap before I really go off. All right, so this episode opened with Emmett Till's funeral. You guys know I've said previously that I feel like we need to be really careful about the mixing of fact and fiction. And the use of Emmett Till's funeral in this episode made me extremely uncomfortable. It opened with the Black people of Chicago, because it was an open casket funeral, because Emmett Till's mother, Mammy Till, did want everyone to see what was done to her son, who was murdered, lynched, after being falsely accused of, attacking a white woman, whistling at a white woman. And so the episode opens sort of at his wake. Cruel Summer is playing. I'm really over the use of contemporary music in this show. I've never liked it. I really thought it was inappropriate completely for this scene. People are throwing up. It's hot as hell. They're fanning themselves. We see the heat, the heat haze. Diana at one point says, what's that smell? It's him, Now, the little girl, let me not say there's nothing I liked about this episode. The little girl playing Diana, she's a great actress. The opening scene, we can tell by her face. There's no words or anything, but just by her face that she's, obviously looking at something disturbing. She was amazing. The little girl was amazing. But I felt like the use of Emmett Till's murder as a plot device, and also making these imaginary, fictitious characters central to this real life event, making Emmett Till, Bobo, Diana's best friend. I noted that there was a little nod to Emmett Till in an earlier episode where they're playing with the Ouija board. A lot of you guys left comments saying one of the kids is supposed to be Emmett Till. And it was cute in the earlier episodes where we're just almost getting flashes, of things that are meant to obviously be referential to real moments in real life. But now we have sort of inserted these fictitious characters in this magical world into this real event. And that's always a tricky thing. That's always a tricky thing. Because you run the risk of making real life events, real life racial violence seem fictitious, seem fictional, seem magical. I've talked about this more in some videos about this Harriet Tubman movie that came out recently, not that recently, but a while back, where they gave her a spidey sense, and they had all type of made up shit in there. And this episode gave me very much that type of vibe. I know a lot of you guys are probably going to mention in the comment section. I do also know that this episode was written by a Nigerian, which I do think, and not just any Nigerian, but a Nigerian woman that was spoken very derogatorily about Black Americans and calling us Akata and saying we're not really Black, we're mixed. People found out a lot of this information about her. So, of course, the fact that she wrote the episode that had Emmett Till's funeral as a centerpiece in this sort of fictitious way isn't surprising to me, especially, knowing Jordan Peele is involved, and, the horror elements of this episode as well. I believe the incarnations were called Bopsy and Topsy or something like that, also served me. Jordan Peele served me Us, very much that. Served me, no plot, which Jordan Peele loves to give you. He loves to give you aesthetic and no plot. Absolutely nothing happening. And our main plot that we want to see, we just see people running around like chickens with their heads cut off, doing nothing. I'm off topic. Back to the recap. But yeah, so we see them at the funeral. They end up losing Diana, which to me seemed like more plot. You guys have heard me say previously that I feel like there's been an issue on Lovecraft Country with just things happening in the plot that make no sense. In last week's episode, I felt like the writing on why Lettie and Tick split up and Tick went to his friend of the family's house in St. Louis alone. I felt like the writing was very thin. At least convince us that they would really do these things, that they would really split up. Don't just have, random things happen just so they can split up. I felt like the same exact thing happened in this episode. We're supposed to be at the funeral of Emmett Till, who in this, universe is Diana Freeman's very best friend. She's standing there with 4 adults, Ruby, Lettie, Montrose, and Tick, including Ruby, who's supposed to be watching her because Hippolyta has not come back yet. As we learn in this episode, it's been a week and Hippolyta has not come back yet, so Ruby's still watching her. Ruby's standing right next to her. We see them all standing right next to her, and then all of a sudden Diana has disappeared. They sort of look away. They're having a conversation because Tick asked Lettie, is it too hot? Does she need to sit down? It was actually nice to see Tick being sort of caring about Lettie for a change instead of giving her the Edward Cullen Whiplash mood swing special. They're passing water amongst each other, talking about how hot it is, and then Diana just disappears. So then they're like, oh, let's, try and see if we can find her. Ruby says, oh, I'm going to stay here in line in case she comes back. One part, like Montrose, I think, goes to like his house. Lettie goes to her house. Tick says he's going to go, check somewhere. And so then now they're all split up, right? I thought that was bad writing. How you lose a little girl at the funeral? Y'all supposed to be watching her. You're at the funeral for her best friend who died, who was murdered, who's a child that was murdered by white racists, white supremacists after being caught alone. How did you lose her? I thought that was terrible writing. Even if you needed them to split up for the things that happened later on in the episode, it should have been done differently. I wasn't feeling it at all. So they lose Diana. She's just kind of like walking, sort of in a daze through the streets. And she ends up outside of a shop. And she sees these little girls, they wave at her. They're eating ice cream and like laughing. She throws rocks at them. She's like, ain't nothing to laugh about. And then she herself gets like a hysterical laugh. And we see that where she was, the shop she was standing in front of had a sign that said, closed for Emmett. The little girl did a great job of acting. Like, I was just like, wow, this is like such a traumatic event, for this child to be going through. She did an amazing job. As she's standing there, white cops pull up on her, and similar to the earlier episodes of what made Lovecraft Country just so visceral and so heartfelt was this sense of dread. The police pull up and you feel the dread, like, oh no, like these cops just pulled up on this little girl. What are they gonna do? We see her walking, trying to like back away from them, and she's backing into a dark alley, and they follow her, and it's just like scary, 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 like, white men with this little black girl, like this. I want to see more of this in Lovecraft Country. Not whatever the fuck they're doing. I don't know what the fuck they're doing, but I want to see more of this. This is what I thought I was signing up for. This concept of like white supremacy and anti-Black racism as sort of like the real monsters, and sort of like pairing that with magic and with this world. I don't know what they're doing now, but that was a great scene. We see them harass her. They have her comic that she drew that was found underneath the dead police officer. You know, they draw these runes on the ground with chalk. They throw her on the ground, ask her, you know, what do you know about magic? And she's like in fantasy books. And then one of them like fucking spits on her. The sheriff spits on her and like wipes his fucking spit on her head. And she starts seeing like flies and maggots and like flies in her throat and like choking. She was like, you know, like I can't breathe. And I was just like, what did they do to her? So again, this was really the only scene out of this whole episode really that I liked. Because again, this was like what I felt like I signed up for, this mix of like magic and monsters and like race, you know, and not only are they police, but they actually do have real magic. This was a great scene. She gets away from them, and as she like gets away, we see this like cream of wheat like ad, and then like the eyes like move and they look at her. So we know already, you know, like they did something to her. Lettie goes back to her house, and Gia is sitting in there. Why the fuck is Gia sitting in her house? Gia's in this episode for a total of 5 minutes, just for us to get a cute, messy love triangle between Lettie, Tick, and Gia. You motherfuckers know how I feel about a fucking love triangle. I fucking hate love triangles. Love triangles are so lazy to me, and I really feel like Hollywood does not know how to write men and women without a love triangle. I said in Gia's episode that I thought it was whack that they fell in love. I thought it could have been just fine with them sort of getting to know each other, and forming even a platonic friendship and gaining an understanding of each other, if that was the angle they wanted to go with. Obviously, that whole entire hour, 6-minute long episode dedicated to a side figure in Korea was a motherfucking waste of fucking time. As well as the fact that they're obviously trying to sort of like push this idea of like, you know, all POC lives matter, and, you know, trying to showcase this idea of like Black Americans being entangled up with imperialism, which I'm fine if they want to show that. I didn't think an entire episode needed to be dedicated to that. But it's like, if you guys wanted to show that, I think it would have been, you know, interesting to just have them get to know each other, you know, with her as his nurse. And then sort of getting to know each other, becoming friends, and getting an understanding. So he gets an understanding of her and her Korean, you know, point of view mindset, if that's what they wanted to go with it. And she gets an understanding of him and his Black American mindset as a soldier, and the fact that, like, in a lot of ways, he's also a victim of American imperialism. I think the way that they went about it was really lazy and sloppy, and I hate a love triangle. And why was Gia really in this episode? She was in this episode for a total of 5 minutes. She shows up at Lettie's house. Tick shows up later on at Lettie's house and sees Gia and Lettie sitting across from each other and yells at her, and they get in an argument, and then he kicks her out and she leaves. And then Lettie and Tick get into an argument, and then Lettie tells Tick he also needs to go. So again, plot. Gia was there as a plot device to cause this friction between Lettie and Tick, and to get them to sort of like split up and go their separate ways in this episode. And then she disappears. We don't even see her anymore. Like, no, like, horrible writing. Like, I just can't believe the writing. Like, the writing was so sloppy and lazy. It seems like they're setting up moments. It just seems like they don't care about the plot. It seems like the plot has been put on the back burner. Nobody's really thinking about the plot. Nobody's really thinking about, are these episodes, like, moving us towards a viable conclusion? There's only 2 episodes left. We've now had 4 episodes revolving around side characters and randomness, with our plot on the back burner as like the bare minimum through line through these episodes. But really, they're just putting the characters in situations so that they can make some type of point. You know, like the Korean thing, I really think was like an all POC lives matter type of point was trying to be made. Like the shape-shifting episode, there was some type of point that they were trying to be made. This whole Ruby and Christina bullshit, you know, like trying to make Christina, I guess, into like a white feminist type of figure, trying to make Ruby into some type of sympathetic figure with this weird interracial thing that they're doing. It's like they're putting them in these situations just to like make a point to the audience, but none of this is actually meant to like drive us any closer to our conclusion, which sucks. It's lame. So Tick met Christina at a mausoleum. He offers to give her the key to the orrery. She reveals that it was actually Hiram who lost his arm. Remember, we saw an arm in the thing. In the Goonies episode, there was like an arm in the lock. She reveals that was Hiram's arm. She also tells Tick that, that a spell isn't just words. Like, you need energy, you need intention, and a body. Now, I'm really curious about what she means by a body. Like, do you need a dead body, or do you need, like, your body to be present? I don't know. But then she says, like, that's, how you upset the balance of nature without a disaster. You have to be in perfect alignment. And she shows him a protection symbol. She writes it in dust on the wall, so he'll give her the key. And then she tells him, good luck, cousin. And it's just like, I'm so tired of looking at Christina's face and her overbite. And it just really seems like Christina's the main character. Like, who are the main characters of this show? It seems like they're damn near trying to make Ruby the main character. Because I feel like Lettie has been put on the back burner. I feel like Tick has been put on the back burner. I feel like, I just don't know what's going on, honestly. And it just really seems, I just don't know where they're going with this. I'm sorry. I know I'm just all over the place, but I really hated this episode. Sorry. Dee goes back home, and Montrose is there, and she yells at him and curses him out and slams the door in his face, and locks herself in her room, and she hears this creepy ass song that's like, let me in, like she washes her face and like puts a hat on to cover the spit, and Montrose is trying to like talk to her through the door about what happened. She's like, you're not my dad, like he's dead, and like my mom's probably dead too, because like y'all are all lying to me. She's been gone for a week. She didn't even come back for the funeral like of my best friend. She would have came. Like, everybody's lying. So I did think that was interesting, because like Hippolyta previously also was like, everybody's lying to me. So we're kind of seeing some continuance of that. But Montrose tries talking to her through the door. She turns on the music so that she can't hear him. And then this like creepy ass song starts playing, like, stop that knocking, let me in. The Uncle Tom's Cabin cover changes to like a demon like attacking, and the book falls. And Dee gets like really scared and freaked out and climbs out the window. And so that's sort of our first inkling that whatever the sheriff did to her in the alley is like he put some type of curse on her. Turns out he got these demonic entities. I did read online that I believe they're called Topsy and Bopsy. I'm sure y'all probably know more about them if you want to write it in the comment section. I don't really care. And I feel like I shouldn't have to fucking listen to podcasts and read Reddit to understand your show, which a lot of you know was also my fucking gripe with fucking Westworld. And, like, I'm having that gripe with a lot of shows. Like, I should not, like, I do know their names were Topsy and Bopsy because I saw it online. It's never actually said in the show, and that's cool, that's fine, whatever. But I do feel like you have a lot of writers that are becoming really lazy and complacent because they feel like they can just supplement the writing with, and later on, tune into our podcast and we'll explain everything that happened, because we know our writing fucking was thin and weak as fuck, and we didn't really do anything. So we're going to explain to you how all this shit is related to our main plot. I should not need supplemental fucking information to understand your episode. Anyways, they're supposed to be looking for Dee, but I guess apparently after the funeral was over, Ruby goes back to Christina / Williams, because even though they're all supposed to be looking for Dee, nobody actually really seems that concerned about the fact that the little girl is missing. Because Ruby goes back to the white side of town where she's been harassed by a neighbor, and then she has a sex scene with Christina as William, where she takes the potion and turns into the white redneck Miss Davenport. I really can never remember her first name. I can only think of her as Miss Davenport. Hillary, maybe, is her name. She turns back into the white girl, and they have sex, and then while they're having sex, she turns back into herself. Again, this is something that I felt like was just meant for, like, a visceral response. Like, they keep setting up these shots and scenes and half shit happening that's just meant to be, like, aesthetically, like, visually, it's meant to, like, get something out of us. But, like, what does it really have to do with the fucking plot? Why did Christina turn back so fast? Christina, sorry. Why did Ruby turn back so fast? Like, has it been 6 hours? Like, am I supposed to think they've been fucking for 6 hours and the potion has worn off? Like, why would she even turn back? That makes no sense in terms of plot. It was just something they wanted us to see. And I'm sure in the podcast, there was, like, a really nice explanation given as, yeah, and it's meant to represent Ruby clawing her way out of the white body because she gave a nice little speech about how she realized she didn't really want to be white. Actually, I want to make my own world and magic's gonna shut the fuck up. You keep turning white. At the end of the day, that's what's fucking happening. You're aligning yourself with this white bitch / this white dude. I don't even know how to describe Christina / William at this point. I don't want to offend anybody, but it's just like, bitch, like you are in the white feminist state of mind right now. Like you just want to run roughshod all over people and not give a fuck who you're hurting or what type of situation you're really getting yourself into, getting yourself in over your head, playing with these demons, shapeshifters, Caucasians, and telling yourself, well, I don't know, you deserve it or something. I really don't know. Like, I find Ruby to be so unlikable. Like, I find Christina to be so unlikable. You guys know I found Tick to be so unlikable. Lettie's starting to get on my nerves. They're all really one note, one dimensional. I don't really feel like these characters are growing or changing. They're behaving in ways that just absolutely make no sense. I know I keep getting off topic of the recap, but like I just keep getting really bothered. Like it seems to me that like the backbone of this episode was the Emmett Till funeral. Dee gets away, disappears, gets this curse on her. She spends the rest of the episode being chased by these creepy ass Bopsy and Topsy. Yes, they were very creepy. Yes, they looked really cool. Yes, they were very terrifying. Yes, those scenes were really, really tense. Horror scenes. The scene where they appear to her to Dee on the train platform, which is the first time that she sees them. Very fucking creepy, like very creepy ass scene. But did I need 5 or 6 scenes of them chasing her with no explanation as to who they are, why they're there, what their names are, what's going on, how did they, like it's just random scenes. Random scenes where they just randomly appear and chase her down the street just to fucking creep us out. Why are we spinning our wheels? Like, none of this is actually telling us anything. It's just meant to give us an interesting visual. It's like junk food is empty inside. Like, it's a very nice exterior. It's very nice patina, but nothing is going on underneath. And I've felt this way for several episodes now that nothing is happening. Nothing's happening. I did like that in this episode, Gia does tell Lettie everything that happened in Korea and about her being a succubus. Because just like I said myself in that episode, I was like, having the knowledge now that Tick actually knows for real about magic makes some of his behavior and actions previously seem really weird. Because it's like, for a fact that magic exists. So, like, some of the confusion and the willingness to get other people involved, I think, was weird. And so I do like that Lettie kind of called him on that and pointed that out. But then again, they end up getting in this big ass argument. And then Tick leaves. And then Lettie decides that she herself is also going to go see Christina to make a deal with the devil. Dee comes to her house. Dee has allegedly been missing all day since the funeral of her best friend, Emmett Till, who was murdered. And then when she goes to talk to Lettie, Lettie's real just like, yeah, whatever. Like, oh, just go inside and like call somebody and let them know you're here and I'll see you later, girl, bye. Like, why would she act like that towards this fucking kid? Just to go to a church and meet up with Christina to try to see if Christina will put her invulnerability spell on Tick. So again, we needed her to sort of brush Dee off because she couldn't take Dee with her to the church because she's going to meet Christina. But is that actually something Lettie would do? Is that actually something anybody would do in real life with a child that's been missing that y'all been looking for on this day of all days, this funeral? No, but we needed her to do it. The plot needed her to do it. All types of shit is going on and has been going on for episodes, not because this is how the characters would actually act, but because this is what the plot just needs them to do. So she goes to the church to meet with Christina. She gives Christina the fucking negatives of the pages. So now Christina has the fucking pages and she has the motherfucking key in exchange for protection. Why? Why are y'all even going to Christina for protection? Just last week in the last episode, wasn't it supposed to be that, we was looking for the book? I know that the cousin said, or the friend of the family said, like, oh, it's gone, like, everything was burned down during the Tulsa riots, but I still would be trying to, like, y'all still have these pages yourselves, like, why would you not just continue trying to figure out the magic for yourselves? Why is everybody all of a sudden going and running to Christina, motherfucking white daddy? Like, now she got Ruby in her pocket, now she made a deal with Tick, she done made a deal with Lettie, she got the fucking key to the orrery, and she got the pages, because both of them went to go make protection deals. I think it's meant to be, like, tragic, like, oh, they're both trying to protect each other, but it really just seems dumb. Like, it just seems fucking stupid, especially considering, again, in this exact same episode, Ruby finally reveals herself to Lettie that she knows what's going on, that she knows all about magic, that she's been drinking this potion to turn white, and that Christina is a shapeshifter. And Lettie says to fucking Ruby, oh, Christina's playing you. She tried to do the same thing to me. But you made a deal with her. Nobody's behavior is consistent. And it's really hard to follow the show when it's just like anything can happen, because like nothing has to like make any sense. They just gonna write whatever they want, whatever fucking point they decide they want to make. They're gonna write Joe Biden into the shit next week and tell us to motherfucking vote. Like, they just write anything into the show. It doesn't have to make any sense. It doesn't have to have any relation to the main plot. The main plot is now the weakest of through lines going through the episodes, and they're giving us these monster of the week formats, these random episodes dedicated to nobodies and fucking side characters, and then every now and then they throw in something about the Order of the Dawn or something like that. Like, yeah, we remember. Stay through to the end. If I wasn't doing these reviews, I probably would quit watching after this episode. Like, not gonna hold you. They had a whole scene with Ruby giving this whack-ass monologue to Christina about how Christina doesn't care about Emmett Till. But it's just like, bitch, but you're, like, why are you even there? Why are you there? Like, after the funeral, you went there to fuck her. You're looking for solace and white pussy or white dick or whatever. But now you're chastising your white partner for not feeling for you as a black person. Like, but bitch, you're there. Like, you're the one that's there. Like, I just don't understand. Like, why are you even fucking there? Why are you there? Like, why are you there? Ruby's such an irritating character. Her motivations make no sense to me. Like, I can only speak for myself. Really, nobody's motivations make sense anymore in this show because everybody just acts totally nonsensically. But Ruby really bothers me. And that whole monologue really bothered me because, again, I felt like it was set up like it was supposed to be some type of, like, really profound, sentimental gotcha moment of her giving this speech about how Christina doesn't have to care because she's white. When it's just like, you the one that went over there looking for solace with this fucking white girl, and now you're chastising her. You don't even have to be there. And then Christina basically confirms, like, yeah, I really don't give a fuck. And then we have this random-ass scene of Christina, like, paying these white dudes to fucking kill her in the exact same way that Emmett Till was killed. But since she has the invulnerability spell on herself, she climbs out of the water laughing. I'm sure that's meant to fucking signify some shit that the writers thought was really smart and clever, but really it was crass and tasteless and gross. And not related to the main plots. I will say that the British Nigerian girl playing Ruby got a gorgeous face. I know I'd love to look at her. I love looking at her face. I'm a sucker for a pretty face. It's terrible. She is beautiful. One other scene that I actually did like was Montrose and Tick sitting on the curb. Seems like there's rolling blackouts because of this heat. It's a heat wave in Chicago. And this is the first time that we really see them have some type of reconciliation after Tick has learned that Montrose is gay. He asks Montrose, did he cheat on his mom? And Montrose says no, he never did, that he had urges, but he never acted on them until after Tick's mom was already dead. And then he also gives a little bit of sort of, backstory on himself, where he talks about how when he was 8 years old, the pastor of his church was found in a park with another man, and that they came in, on Sunday, and the police came and dragged him away from the pulpit like a criminal, and he ended up in an asylum with, like half of his brain removed, like lobotomized, and I thought that was like a really great, profound moment for us to finally see some type of reconciliation of what happened between Montrose and Tick, and I want more of those type of moments, like, I just feel like they did not, like, our characters are just totally spinning out of space and out of control. And that scene served as a reminder of, like, if this was actually grounded in, our main plot, in the family, in the family, in our main characters, and in all of this promise that we were sort of introduced to in the beginning of this series, like, it could still be really special. I thought that moment was just amazing. And Tick also reveals that he knows already that Lettie is pregnant, even though she hasn't told him yet. And the reason why he knows is because when he went through the portal with Hippolyta last week, he got sent into the future. And that when he got sent into the future, he got this book, which we've now seen several times, this sort of meta prop book called Lovecraft Country by George Freeman, who is his son. And he says that the book is basically their family history, but with some changes. I thought the changes that he mentioned were really, really interesting, that the details of the book were slightly different. He said that in the book, Christina is a man, which, was interesting knowing what we know about her shapeshifting, that D is a boy named Horace, and that Christina sacrifices him and kills him so that she can become immortal on the autumnal equinox, which we kind of have a bit of an idea about already. And so Montrose finally sort of says, he finally gets on board of like, I'm going to do whatever it takes to sort of protect you and to protect my grandson. And I did like this line that he said, like, which I wrote down. He said, Montrose said, I always thought my end would come at a white man's bullet or rope. Magic is so much more jazz. When he said that, I was like, please give Montrose a spinoff. Give Hippolyta and D spinoffs, because I'm tired of these people that I'm looking at now. And I'm tired of whatever this storyline they're trying to do. Like, I'm tired of it. Montrose does, in fact, get fully on board and teams up with Tick to do a protection spell. Right before they do the spell, he reveals that he's dyslexic and sometimes mixes up words. They do the spell and they initially think that it didn't work. I'm wondering if he mixed words up, if that was some type of foreshadowing. So I'm wondering if he mixed words up and that if the spell did work or if it didn't work. We also see that the police show up to Lettie's house because they realize that they're not. So it turns out that they cursed Diana because they want Diana to bring them the orrery, which I don't even know if she knows what the orrery is. I feel like she doesn't, but y'all can let me know if she does and I'm forgetting. It's been so many fucking episodes since we even saw our main characters working on the main plot. I've forgotten. But she says, like, fuck you, like, I'm not gonna help you, and she, like, spits on the police herself. She, like, goes to the lodge to ask the sheriff, like, what did they do to her? Who's after her? And he's like, well, I'll remove it if you give me the orrery. And she says, like, fuck you. And he's like, well, she's dead anyway, like, it doesn't matter, we'll get it ourselves. So then they show up to Lettie's house to get it, but they can't come in. One of the police does go in, so we know that at least some of them are regular humans. But, like, the sheriff and I think, like, the deputy, they can't come in. Because as we know, Lettie has a magic protection put on the house from way back when she moved out, and they had to exorcise the demons. So they try to come in, they can't come in. Lettie realizes they know magic, they realize she knows magic, and they proceed to shoot the place up. Talk about some, we've heard that it's some Nation of Islam radical planning going on in here for retaliation for Emmett Till. Tick comes over, sees them shooting up the place. He puts his hands up. The police start to shoot him. One of the Lovecraftian monsters jumps out and fucking basically kills everybody and leaves Lettie and Tick unharmed. And then at the end they say like, oh, the spell worked. I don't know if that's to say that Tick and Montrose's spell worked, or to say because they were trying to do a protection spell, or to just say that Lettie's spell worked because Lettie got a spell put on her by Christina as well when she was in the church. Christina did give her the spell of invulnerability, which she called the Mark of Cain, which the whole thing was giving me very much supernatural tease with the Mark of Cain and with the meta, like the Lovecraft Country book and the Lovecraft Country episode. I don't know, somebody was watching Supernatural before they wrote this episode, but they didn't get the part about keeping your main character central to your plot from Supernatural. And the two little demons finally do catch up to Dee at the end, Mopsy and Bopsy and Topsy and Popsy, because after chasing her all across the episode, she finally sort of barricades herself in her parents', bookstore or comic shop, where they come in and get her. There's like a whole extended sequence of one of them like staring into the camera, breaking the fourth wall. Like, bitch, we get it. Jordan Peele, they're creepy. We got it. And they attack her, and she's fucking fighting them off with a pipe, but then Montrose hears her screaming and comes in and, gets the pipe away from her and grabs her, and we see them, like, scratching her up and stuff, and I was like, oh, so now they're gonna get her, but because she can't fight them off, and it ends there, that element of it ends there, so I'm curious to see, like, what ends up happening with that. I just really don't care about what else happened in this episode. Sorry if I left anything out of this, like, quote-unquote recap, but I don't give a fuck. It just seems like it's a random assortment of things happening so that we can be beat over the head with the message of, like, whatever the message, like, message, instead of, like, us actually watching a story unfold and coming to the conclusions ourselves. It's just like a random assortment of shit happening to beat us over the head with a point. And then every now and then they just, like, sprinkle in, like, and the Order of the Dawn, don't leave, so that they keep our attention, like, yeah, and we still have our main plot on the back burner. Stay till episode 10, which is whack. I just don't feel like this show is as smart and clever and profound as it thinks it is at this point. There were only 2 scenes out of this whole episode that I actually thought were good and profound, and that was, you know, the opening scene with Diana sort of trying to deal with this traumatic event, and after she runs away from the funeral, you know, that those scenes and the police catch up to her, that stuff. Excuse me, and the scene with Tick and his father sitting outside drinking. The rest of it, it just seems like they're just trying way hard to make some type of statement, some type of aesthetic statement, some type of, I don't know what. It's like they just lost sight of their characters. It seems like they lost sight of their characters. It seems like they've lost sight of their characters' behavior. It seems like they've lost sight of their plot, what their plot is supposed to be, what we're supposed to be taking away from every episode, and where this is all going. There's 2 episodes left, so I'm sure, you know, the next 2 episodes are probably going to be overly long and really packed with shit to try to wrap everything up. But it's been too many, like, I don't want to call the episode shitty, but it's been just too many. Like, I have not enjoyed an episode since episode 4. And we're about to be in episode 9, which is, you know, the second to last episode. Because it just seems like we're way off the rails. Like, we're just off track. Like, we have jumped the shark. And I don't know if it's going to be able to get back on track with only 2 episodes left. And especially with how much I disliked this one and the last one. And I wasn't feeling the one before that or the one before that. It just seems like they've gone off the rails. So, Lovecraft Country, episode 8. I know this episode, it seems like it was really polarizing, because I also know people that really loved it and fuck with it. Seems like an episode that you either loved or hated, and I was in the camp that hated it. So, let me know what you guys think in the comments. There will be links and information in the description box. Food for thought as always. See you guys next time. Peace.